Coming up on Hands on Mac, it's time to take a look at the Reminders app that's available on Mac, but also on iPadOS and iOS. Oh, as well as watchOS. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This show is brought to you by members like you. Thanks. Welcome back to Hands on Mac. I am Mikah Sargent, and today we are taking a look at the Reminders app for macOS. So let's head over to macOS to take a look. All right, here we are on macOS, and I'm going to open up the Reminders app. And the first thing it does is it says, hey, can I go ahead and access your location? That is because we're going to talk about location-based reminders here in a moment. So I'll choose allow, and you'll see that there are some different options available. Quick creation, which lets you type, ask Siri, or click the edit buttons to create reminders. So at times there may be opportunities for reminders to be created based on what context you provide. Suggestions that can help you kind of organize things, as well as smart lists that also help you organize things. We'll talk about those. And then, of course, organization based on tags and the ability to collaborate with others by creating shared lists, which we'll talk about as well. So I'll click continue. And you'll see in the left side, we've got a search bar, but also we have some basic scheduling, or some basic categorizing. So today, scheduled, all, flagged, completed, and then lists for reminders. We're going to go through the entire thing. And when we go through the entire thing, you know how I like to kick this off, and that is by going into the settings menu. So we'll go up to the top left here, we'll click on reminders, and we'll choose settings. And let's take a look at what we have here. So up first is the default list. This decides where your reminders are created unless you specifically click on a list to have them created. So if you choose to create a reminder, where is it going to go by default? You can choose to create all day reminders that have a notification. So when you create an all day reminder, go ahead and pop up at 9 a.m. or whatever time you set to let you know about that. So if you say, I want to be reminded tomorrow about it being someone's birthday, that reminder is going to pop up at 9 a.m. because that's what I have it set to. You can change that to whatever time you want. And then showing all day reminders as overdue means that after that day has elapsed, then it will show as overdue. You didn't complete that reminder. The badge count gives you the ability to add a badge at the bottom of the screen for the Reminders app, and then include not just overdue items. So 1, 2, or 3 things you didn't complete the day before at a specific time in the day, but also those reminders that are coming up. So you can kind of choose, do I only want to show the ones that I didn't get done, or do I want to show the ones that I have to do and the ones that I didn't get done? The ability to mute notifications for assigned reminders. So that's if someone else chooses to share a reminder with you, you can say, I don't want notifications for that. Adding reminders. This is a suggestions feature. So this is basically the smarts that are built into the system. So SIRI, that virtual assistant, you may get suggestions for that, for adding reminders to the Reminders app. And then last but not least is that over time, as you create grocery lists, the system can kind of figure out category items that you've created. So let's say you regularly type in eggs, cheese, milk, and bread, and you choose to sort automatically, we'll show that too, according to the grocery aisle, then Reminders is automatically going to sort those. So dairy for eggs, cheese, and milk, and then bakery or whatever for bread. But you only drink powdered milk. So you want to move milk to a different category. Over time, that will get, the system will go, oh, I recognize that this person continues to change this to the canned goods category. So that must mean that that is where those categories should be. You can then reset those categories. So you can say, oh, now I'm drinking liquid milk as opposed to powdered milk. So here's how we do that. We'll close out of the settings and we will take a look at the rest of the menu bar options. If you choose File, it'll of course give you the ability to create new reminders, new lists, new groups, but you can also create new sections. So those different sections that are available in here, let me show you that are available in here. So if I choose new section, I can say, these are secondary reminders. And then I can choose new section and I can call these primary reminders. So I will take primary reminders and move it up to the top. And now I can say record. Look, there's one. Record hands on Mac. That's a suggested reminder. And a secondary reminder would be, I don't know, recycle. Let me see if I can think to spell old batteries. Because, that's something that maybe I'll get around to. Now, if I go up to File, you can see I have the option to edit the sections. I can choose a section and move it to a different place. I can select multiple reminders that I've set and move them into a new section with those reminders. I can choose to pin a list, so that list will stay at the top of all of my other lists, share a list with another person, convert to Smart List, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then we can also save as a template. So if you regularly create a reminder that always happens you always want it to remind you at a specific location when you're leaving that location, and it's just changing what the item actually is, turn it into a template. And then you only have to recreate from those templates. So if I choose view templates, you'll notice I don't have any templates because I have not set any of those up. And then of course there's a close option. And yes, you can print out reminders, which is quite nice. In the edit field, you've got your standard edit options, but also mark due date as. So I can say, I want to change all of the reminders to be due today, to be due tomorrow, to be due this weekend, to be due next week. Or I can choose all of the reminders for today and say, hey, they're all overdue as today. I can choose a specific reminder, and if I added another one, then I can indent or outdent the reminder. So that kind of makes it a subtask, essentially. I can flag a reminder to make it particularly important, set the priority to low, medium, or high, add tags to reminders, which we'll talk about in a moment as well, find specific reminders, and then, of course, you have your standard other edit options. We're not going to go over those. I also have the ability to view these items as lists or columns. So, of course, in the one way, as a list, you will see those kind of listed down, but columns will be side by side. I can choose how I want to sort them. So manually, as I did, where I dragged those around, sort them by due date, by creation date, by priority, or by the title. So alphabetically. I can go to a specific section like completed, flagged, scheduled, or I should say category. Section is separate from category. And then show smart list. So again, we'll talk about that in a moment. Show completed. So I can see all of the tasks that I've done, like recording hands on Mac, eating some food, walking the dog, going for a run, saying hello to your best friend, feeding the bat. We'll talk about that. And then I can choose to hide those completed again. I also have the ability to show and hide subtasks, which again, we'll talk about momentarily. Show the list info. So this gives me the ability to edit what this list looks like. This is the default list, reminders. My favorite color is green, so I'm going to make reminders green. And then I can choose a special icon for the default. I'm going to leave it as it is. I can choose between emoji, which are on the left side, and icons, which are on the right. And again, we'll leave that as it is. And then you can change the list type between standard or groceries. So I'm going to leave this alone as reminders, made it green. And you'll notice that not only did the icon change, but now the text at the top of the window also changed based on me making adjustments to the list info. There's another way to gain access to that menu, and we'll talk about that in a second too. I can choose to hide the sidebar so that I only see those reminders, and then of course, enter full screen. Window has nothing special in it, so we won't go through there. And of course, help is essentially what I'm doing. So you don't need to use that because I am your help here as we're walking through these. So let's go ahead and take a look at the left side once more and see the categories. right now I have 2 reminders, but neither of those reminders are listed anywhere except for the all section. They're not listed in today or scheduled. They're not listed in completed. They're not listed in flagged because it doesn't have any of those categories. So I need to make those categories work in order for that. I need to set those reminders with those categories in order to have them show up there. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, we've got my lists. Now, if I click on reminders, you'll see that next to the text, which I can change by simply clicking and keeping my mouse hovered over reminders, I have a 2 next to what's called the collaboration feature. And that means that it is shared with 2 people. So I can choose how this is set up and who has access to it. And this basically means that this reminders section is able to have collaboration. So we'll get back to that as well. I just kind of want to walk through all the features. And then, of course, I do want to create another list here, and we are going to call this one groceries. Once again, I can also pull from list templates and be able to create a template for a list in particular. So let us choose groceries. And I think groceries are brown. And so let's go with an icon, and we'll go with a carrot. So that will create the groceries list, and then we'll choose groceries here as the option. Now, I'm going to show you the groceries in a second, but I want to go ahead and create a smart list. So we'll call this, you know what, let's just call it smart list. And smart to me feels blue, and we will choose from the emoji section, and we'll choose a brain. This is the smart list, and we'll go down and we'll choose smart list. Now, this is where functionality comes into play. When you create a smart list, much like my episode of Hands on Mac that covered the different filtering that you can do with the Finder, this is a lot like that. So in this case, we need to decide what reminders are included in this smart list. So do I want all of the reminders that match, or rather, do I want the reminders that match all of the following filters or any of the following filters? Meaning that if it is one of those things, it gets included, or if it has to match all of these things, that it gets included. And here, we have the option to choose between tags, date, time, priority, flag, location, and lists. And then any tag, any selected, and of course, this is going to change based on what you do. So let's say I want one that finds anything that is prioritized as medium, or anything that is prioritized let me choose, I've got to choose any up here so that it lets me set that. And then I can choose anything. Oh, no, that should have worked to let me choose. Oh, there we go. It's the any priority. So if it has a priority set, then I want you to show it in this smart list. And if it has a priority set and it has a tag tied to it, then I want you to show it in this list. I'll actually remove that second one because I just want the prioritized options to be here. So this smart list only shows prioritized options. Now, let's go back up to reminders, and we'll get to creating a reminder in just a moment, but I want to show you the menu up in the top right before we do that. The first icon here will be familiar to you. It is the share sheet option. When I click on the share sheet, I can create, or I can rather share this entire reminders list with another person as a collaboration. So if I want to, I can set up a family list that says anybody who has access to this list can add or remove reminders from this list. Now, it's important that under this section, you look at the people you invite can add others section. If I click on this, I choose either to allow others to invite or disallow others to invite. If allow others to invite is checked, that means that once you send this off to someone else, your friend or your cousin Kathy can either be able to share that with someone else, cousin John, or not be able to share it with someone else. You get to choose. So if you don't trust cousin John, and therefore you don't trust cousin Kathy to not share it with cousin John, then go ahead and uncheck this before you choose to share. Then you can send it via mail, messages, notes. You can just select the link in particular by choosing invite with link. That will copy the link to your clipboard, and then you can paste it wherever you want to. So in this case, I'm going to choose invite with the link just so that I can show you what this looks like. Now I can choose who I want to send this to. I would type that person's name here or type in their number, and then you will get a link afterward that you can then share to other people. So I'm going to choose cancel because I don't want to share this with anyone. And so now you'll see that the shared option shows up here. I can choose to manage the shared list, which only has me, and I can add more people. And then again, here's this option that anyone can add more people. I can choose stop sharing if I no longer want to share this list. So if you accidentally checked that box, other people have been added, you can remove them, of course, from up here. But it's better if you would like to hit that stop sharing button. And then this list is no longer shared with anyone else. The next option is a way to create a new section. So I can say tertiary reminders. And then the last option is a way to, it's just a plus icon, and that means add a new reminder. So let's go ahead and take a look at what it's like to add a reminder. So I've got this record hands on Mac option here as my first reminder. I'm going to click on the eye icon to the right of it to give it some details. First and foremost, I'm going to flag it. Then I'm going to add a note. So I'm going to say, you need to record 2 episodes of Hands on Mac for this Thursday and next Thursday. Then I want to add a tag to it. We'll call the tag TWiT. And I simply typed in the tag and hit tab to add that. I'll also do HOM. And excuse me. Then I need to set a reminder. So I choose when it's reminded. Do I want it to happen on a day? Do I want it to happen at a location? Or do I want it to happen when I'm messaging a person? I love that feature. That says anytime I go to text this person, Cousin John, then remind me about this thing. So if there's something you want to tell Cousin John, like, hey, stop adding reminders to the list, you'd set a reminder called warn Cousin John about adding reminders to the list, and then you select when messaging a person, you choose add contact, and then you add Cousin John from that list. The next time you go into the Messages app and you start to type a message to Cousin John, boop, up pops this reminder letting you know you got to warn Cousin John. You can also choose to add a reminder at a location. So I could say when I, let's say, get to work, for example, when I arrive at work, then send me this message, or when I'm leaving work, send me this message. And you can choose how large the sort of GPS bubble is around that. So I can say within 328 feet or up to quite a bit more. 328 feet is the smallest amount. And I like this because it means that once I get out onto the road away from work, it very quickly lets me get rid of it, or rather, it very quickly turns on this notification. And then the other option is on a day. So I can choose to have it remind me on January 4th, for example. And of course, my default is 9 a.m. If I had it set that way, I don't want to do that. I want to choose at a time. And so I'm going to say tomorrow at 3 p.m., or let's go with 12 p.m., I want you to remind me. Now, what's cool is that there are more features that are involved with this. So remember that I added some tags. I added a flag. Now I've got an option to set an early reminder. This is kind of like a duplicate of the reminder. So it says, yes, on January 4th at 12, I want you to remind me about this, but I also want you to remind me an hour before. So 1 hour before I actually am meant to be reminded, remind me again so that whenever that hour comes up, I can do it. It's a little bit like a calendar entry, but that's very helpful. And then we've got the option to repeat. So if every Thursday you record Hands on Mac, then you could say that weekly, I want you to remind me to record Hands on Mac. You can also set up custom options. So you can say every 1 week on Thursdays, for example, so that's weekly, or every 2 weeks on Thursdays. If it's bi-weekly, then you can do that. And you see that it changed it to bi-weekly. And then of course you can send an end date for that repeat if you're only going to be doing it, for so many times. Lastly, you can set a priority. So again, I want to say this has a medium priority, or maybe it's a high priority. And all of these options, you kind of get to choose what falls into those categories. Lastly, I can add a URL. So if this reminder is tied to something specific, I can say, for example, twit.tv/HOM, because that is the URL for Hands on Mac. And then I can even go as far as to add an image if there's a specific image that I wanted to add that's tied to this. Now, I will go ahead and hit return to save all of that. And you'll notice all of this information, the 3 exclamation points, which means it's a high priority. I have a little browser preview for the link. I've got my 2 tags that are tied to this. I can see that it repeats every 2 weeks and that my reminder will be tomorrow at noon, of course, with the extra reminder an hour before. It's flagged, and look, it automatically showed up in my smart list because it fits that category that I set. So from there, what's cool is that I can add some subtasks as well. So let me actually remove this second reminder here, if it will allow me to, please. And then I can... Why is it? There we go. Delete this reminder and delete the next reminder here, although it apparently needs to have some text in it in order to allow me to delete it. So there we go. Now I can set a second reminder, which is record another show. From here, from this sort of short menu, I can choose to add a date, add a location, add tags, add a flag. If I want to get access to the rest of it, I once again click that eye icon in order to make that appear. Now, watch this. I right-clicked on record another show, and I have all of these options, including setting a due date. But what's most important is that I want to indent this reminder. So this says that it is a subtask of recording Hands on Mac. Now, this main task of record Hands on Mac has a little subtask underneath it. And if I were to select this and hit enter, then I can set up a second one, prepare for the show. And then a third. You know what you need to do. These are not great reminders, folks. Now there are 3 subtasks under Record Hands on Mac. And if I select the checkbox next to Record Hands on Mac, then that means that I've completed those 3 tasks beneath. So that should sync. I don't know. It's telling me, no, you've not done this. That's simply a bug. But I can select each of these 3 underneath here and then select to have that. See, yeah, it's a syncing issue that's causing it to not actually mark as completed. So from here, let's go ahead and move on to the groceries list. So I've shown you how to create a reminder, how to categorize the reminder, what you can add to it, what the different types of reminders are. The last thing that's remaining is a groceries list. So what I want to do is I want to choose add, and I want to do what I talked about before: eggs, butter, bread, milk, cheese, cake mix, vanilla extract, orange juice, sparkling water. Let's see. Tootsie Rolls. And this is automatically categorizing my different items based on where I would find them in a grocery store aisle. And remember what I said before about how if you had milk, for example, in a different section, I could go ahead and say, no, in my case, milk goes under baking items. And Reminders will save that as something that you are saying is the case for you when it comes to these grocery items. At any time, if you'd like to remove some of these items, for example, so to completed, I can choose clear and it will let me choose to select all of these as items that I have done. And so we'll cancel out of that because we don't want to do this. But as I mark these off, of course, then they are going to move from the groceries list to the completed list. So there's cake mix, bread, cheese, milk, butter, eggs. And now, lastly, I'll show you the different ways that things can be categorized. So today I don't have any reminders to complete because I don't have anything set for today. Scheduled includes that on February 29th, I need to record Hands on Mac. So that, we're going back to that earlier thing. The reason why it kept reappearing is because it's a recurring reminder. Every 2 weeks, it's meant to pop up again. So as I was checking it off, it just moves down to the next date. All of the reminders, the flagged reminders, which of course is record Hands on Mac, and then of course my lists that include now reminders, groceries, and that smart list that has tags. Once you've added tags, you'll see a little section that shows tags so that you can sort everything by tags specifically. And you can say, I want tags that do not have HOM, but do have TWiT, or I want tags that have all of the possible tags. So it's very easy to categorize from there. Folks, that is your in-depth look at reminders. And what's great is that it is almost exactly the same across the different platforms. Whether you're using it on macOS, iOS, or iPadOS, you can count on this experience and know that all of these features are available to you. Reminders is an incredibly powerful application. You don't really need a third-party application for your reminders, unless there's something that you like better. I am a big fan of DUE, as my Reminders app, but that's because it's simple in comparison to something like Reminders, which is very robust at this point. So I hope you got a lot out of this very in-depth look at the Reminders app and kind of every feature that's involved, every button you can press and everything in between. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Hands on Mac. I greatly appreciate you, and I will see you again next week for another episode. Bye-bye.